911. It's a number dialed over 240 million times each year. In all cases, those cries for help are answered by trained professionals, and many of them are NENA certified ENPs. Let's talk to one of them, unedited and completely off the cuff.
Are you positive he's breathing?
No.
Okay, and he's blue?
Yeah.
Okay, then there's a good chance he's not breathing. Is there somebody else there that can do CPR?
Oh my God.
911, what's your emergency?
NENA, the National Emergency Number Association, and the NANCI-approved Standards Development Organization, has created the Emergency Number Professional Accreditation, specifically for public safety professionals. ENP certification establishes the benchmark for performance, signifying a broad-based competence in the public safety field. Successful certification completion demonstrates an individual's mastery of the knowledge base requirements for an emergency management position. So join me as we talk to yet another new ENP, unedited and completely off the cuff. Hey, it's Fletch. Welcome to another episode of Off the Cuff, True Confessions of an ENP. Today we're talking with Kelley Sandmann, Mrs. Sandman from Anoka County ECC up in cold Minnesota. You guys getting snow up there yet?
Not as much as we had last year.
But you're getting some though, right?
A little bit, yep.
Yeah. It was flurrying. I'm in New Jersey. It was actually flurrying a little bit the other day. And I'm like, hey, stop doing that.
Yeah, last year we already had about 6 inches on the ground at this point.
Wow. So congratulations on your brand new ENP.
Thank you very much.
So how long have you been at Anoka County and in public safety in general?
I have been a 911 dispatcher only at Anoka County for 18 years. It'll be 19 in March.
Oh my gosh. Wow, you've got 20 years at the same agency.
Yes. It's
wow.
a long ride.
What do they do? Drug the coffee or what? Chain you to your desk?
No, it's more I don't like change. And I really like the atmosphere we have at Anoka County. We have a very wonderful group of people and a very wonderful staff. And I just like where I am.
Cool. So what's your responsibility today? What's your title?
I am one of the training supervisors.
Oh, okay. That's an interesting job because that's changing, right? With all of this new technology coming in, your position is number one needed, but it's constantly evolving as well. Do you find it hard to keep up with technology?
Very much so. Currently, the supervisors here at Anoka County, we have dual responsibilities. In addition to working as a floor supervisor, we also have to eke out office time to do our projects that we're assigned. And I have been in the role of training supervisor for the past 3 years, and I do not have enough time to get even a tenth of what I need to get done as a training supervisor. So it's really exciting for our department. They're creating these 2 new positions, and one of them is more an admin type training position that's going to evolve quality assurance and overreaching training in general for the whole department. And I'm hoping to get that position.
No, that's great. Do you ever get on the floor to take calls?
Yes. As the floor supervisor, we're kind of the backup to the center if it gets really busy. But we are short-staffed, just like the rest of the country. And
imagine that. Jeez. Yeah.
And we are having to cover a lot of hours on the floor to assist with
wow. How much down are you in staffing percentage-wise? Do you know?
I believe it's 17 out of 45.
Wow.
Yeah. We're not.
Wow. That's a nice chunk. That's a third.
Yeah.
Man. How do you get by? I mean, does it hurt your people when you're down by a third?
Yeah, we've had to make some tough choices. We had to take a spot away from the night shift because the numbers just aren't needed for the calls that are coming in. And we have to mandate overtime, and we have to force people in, and it's been rough.
How do you recruit people, new people to come into your center? Hey, move to Minnesota. We give out gloves and hats.
Hot chocolate. Yeah. We actually, our office manager is very creative, and she came up with these little business cards, and they have our website and our logo on the front, and then it has a QRC code. And when they scan that, it brings them to our login for our yeah, to apply.
Okay, yeah, the employment portal. Oh, that's great. So,
Exactly.
I mean, what about recruiting at the young level, like in the high schools and the local colleges? Have you thought about that? I know a couple of agencies have started to focus on that because with next gen and the new modalities, the new way of communicating, these kids come in and they're like just flying on devices and the keyboard is natural to them, right?
Yes, we have made a big push the last couple of years to go to career fairs and safety camps for the police officers have, and high school career fairs, and really put our name out there. And we are noticing a increase, but even the candidates coming in, we're not getting the numbers that we had. When I started, I was one of four that got hired out of 500 candidates. Now we're lucky if we get 60.
Wow, 500 candidates. Wow.
It's changed,
What planet do you live on?
right? It's not that way anymore.
Oh my God. How about doing a sit along program where you can bring someone in for a shift and or a couple of hours on a shift and kind of let them get the feel to weed out the people that I mean you got such a small audience to start with, right? Would you have any left? I don't know. But at least they know what they're getting into.
We do that in our hiring process. Our first interview is a panel of a supervisor and two training officers. Our second portion is that they come in for 4 hours and sit with someone on the floor, and they get to experience what a shift is like and ask questions. And then our final interview process is a panel of one of the training supervisors, our assistant director, and our director. And that has been very beneficial because we have had some people at that second stage say, nope, nope, this is not for me.
Yep, yep. When do you start doing all of your background and security checks?
After that point, after the third round interview, when the assistant director, and the training supervisors decide, okay, this is our list of people we want to offer to.
Yeah. So, I mean, what do you find as far as the percentage of people that pass that security check, Kelly? Once you said, okay, this person looks like somebody we want. Oh, wait a second, we can't hire them.
Yeah. Well, the last couple of years, we have not had good luck with that. I know we are currently in the process of screening. It was up to 11 candidates for January in class, and we are down to three because these have failed their psych or their background.
What I mean, do you know what the cost to your agency is for each one of those background
No,
checks?
I don't.
I always wondered what the soft and hard cost was for that because, some of it is free, but it's still somebody's time, and it's an extensive process, as you know. I mean, you got to kind of get the microscope out, and there's a cost to all of that. But I was going to ask you, what do you think about relaxing the standards a little bit? But every time I think about that, I'm like, no, Fletch, don't put somebody on the spot like that. But
I don't know. I mean, I feel like in a way we have just because we do a typing test and we set it at 35 words per minute. And even that is a struggle sometimes for some people coming in.
so, what prompted you to get your EMP after all these years?
Well, it was interesting because our old administration that we had before our current director came in um, was very closed minded in a way to training. We didn't get many outside of work training opportunities. We were kind of like an island because I didn't know about Nina or APCO or anything. And then our current director came here about 8 years ago, and she's like, hey, go to all these trainings. And there's a conference up in Alexandria, which is the Minnesota chapter of Nina APCO. And here, we're going to send you out of the state to go to APCO International. And my eyes just were open to this huge other world of 911 and how big the 911 community is, nationwide. And so the first couple years that she was here, I was just kind of trying to take all that in. And then she offered this ENP test as a chance. The department paid for it, for anybody that was interested. And I was like, I think that's something I want to try. I think I could do that. And when I got into the material, it was a little bit more than I thought I could handle. It is very daunting, especially when you get into the old phone system. But yeah, I was able to do it, and I am very glad I did it. And yeah, I enjoyed the process, as crazy as that seems.
Were you happy with your final score when you got it?
Yes. So let's see. I got the material 2 years ago, almost January, would be 2021, and I started studying it, and I got a little panicky because I was like, "Whoa, this is."
Yeah. When people order the book and just start breezing, they're like, "Yeah, this is not going to happen."
Right. And then I heard someone mention, I don't know if it was a podcast that you had done, because I listened to a few of them, or it was something that I heard on Tracy Eldridge's study session, but they said that they listened to the study sessions back and forth on the way to work. And I have a 45-minute car ride back and forth to work, and I was like, oh, that's perfect. So I started doing that, and that was really helping, but I still feel like I wasn't making a scratch really into it, like it hadn't seeped in. And then about the summer of 2021, me and my husband found a house up here, and we moved up 45 minutes north. We had lived closer, and other big life change things happened, and I had to stop. I couldn't study anymore. And and that was kind of frustrating and daunting. But then I got back into it again a couple months later, after life had settled down, and things were starting to make sense, and things were starting to connect. And I would be at work, and I'm like, oh, that's what that is. So then it wasn't so scary, because those connections were starting to make sense.
Yeah, when you can apply what you're learning to what you're doing, you start to see the neurons connect and click, and things happen. Now your husband is in public safety as well, right?
He was. He was a police officer. He had to medically retire about 5 years ago.
Okay. So what does he think about you being in the business?
Well, we met on the job, and we
you've been on the job that long, and you married a cop. Don't you know any better?
Yeah, it was funny. But the key to making that work is opposite shifts.
There you go.
So we have 2 boys out of that, and because it's really nice having him as a resource, because I can vent to him, because he was a cop within my jurisdiction. So he knows what I do, but he doesn't know what I do. So when I vent and complain about work, he's not saying, oh, well, it's because of this, or, oh, well, it's because of that. He understands the workload that I have and the type of situations I've gone through, and I can vent to him, but he can't pat me on the head and say, oh, it's okay. It works out okay.
Did you ever get a chance to work on shift with him?
When we were first dating, yes. And I have a funny story about that, actually. He was transporting someone from a traffic stop to a gas station to get gas, because I guess their car broke down or something. And I sound like I'm 5 on the radio, apparently. And the guy in the back seat of the squad car says, since when do you let kids talk on the radio? And my husband goes, hey, that's my girlfriend. So we quickly figured out that we needed to be on opposite shifts. One, for my peace of mind, because even though he was in a very safe area and a quiet department, I still worried about him. And we just didn't want work to spill over or our personal lives to spill over into work. And that worked very well.
Yeah, but if he wasn't behaving himself, you could give him the crappy calls.
Right? And I would hear things like a fellow dispatcher would say, your husband got into another pursuit last night, and be like, oh, okay.
That's funny. That's funny. So how did you study for the ENP? What was your process?
Well, I listened to the podcast over and over again. I found that just one time was not enough. I listened to Tracy's, and then I also found the one on Colorado's website. It looks like they might be redoing those because those were as of 2014, and then they said they're only good through the fall of this year, so they might be remaking those. Um, and then I did Mission Criticals as well. I read the book. I do not recommend that. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. I do, but give yourself time because it's a lot of material to go through.
It's
And
a reference manual,
yes, yes,
right? So it's there to it's like the dictionary.
yes.
You don't read the dictionary
No,
to learn English.
no. But one thing that I did find that was really beneficial, I was given two separate practice tests aside from the ENP practice test that I did take too. And I printed them off and I went through them. Oh, let's see, it would have been this summer. I went through them and wrote on a notebook all my answers, just cold turkey. I hadn't studied it the week before. And then when I went back, I looked up the answers to see if it was correct in the reference book and on the website and in the glossary. And I researched, okay, does this answer the correct one? And on one hand, I was very pleasantly surprised that I would have passed if that was an actual test. I think I had like 72% or something like that. But on the other hand, it really reinforced a lot of the training that I had done. And then one of my biggest struggles, which I knew, was legislation. I'm not Legislation is not my strong suit, and whenever I would look at that section of the manual, my eyes would glaze over. So I made flashcards and I just went through them like once or twice a week, and that helped reinforce it. And then I got to a point where literally I could tell nothing else was sinking in, and I was like, okay, I just have to go take it, just go do it because I'm not getting any more out of this right now. And I did it, and I passed.
So you went to the center to take your exam?
Yes, I took it. Yeah, at a testing center.
Yep. Okay. What'd you think of that experience? Had you been through something like that before? Because that's a little daunting if you've never been in that environment.
Yes, actually, I have a teaching degree. When before I started here, I had just graduated from Minnesota State University Moorhead with an art teaching degree, and it was December of 2004, and I had to take my test at a testing center for my licensure for that.
Okay. Interesting. So how do you think this is going to help your job
Well,
after 19 years?
19 years. Well, on one hand, it has, so as the training supervisor, I train a lot of times the new kids coming in, the new class coming in. And before, when I would talk about like rapid SOS or rapid deploy, I would give my base understanding of what was going on, and it was very surfacey. It wasn't very like in depth, and they'd have questions, and I'd be like, I don't know, this is just how I know it works. Now I can be like, well, it's because of this, or because of that, or it connects this way, or and that's very helpful too. But what I struggle with sometimes is because I have such an in-depth background is not going too in depth that their eyes start glazing over.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, do you think an EMP certification is good for the regular call taker? I mean, is there value there?
I do. I think having your EMP or going for your EMP is one, gives you a lot of confidence in your job and your skills. But two, you never know what doors training can open for you down the road. And the reason why I went out for it was because I am interested in going into management side. And I'm not saying that this is going to make me a shoe-in if I apply for something higher than the supervisor position I am now, but it definitely strengthens my chances.
Oh yeah, it's a benefit. If you have it and the other candidate doesn't, you're ahead of the game.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and when I get introduced to new information, I have a little bit deeper background and I can speak with authority, or maybe I can make those connections faster on understanding it.
So there's two schools of thought. There's one that you're an ENP and now you want to pursue that management role, so you then go to your CMCP. But we also find a lot of CMCPs that want to increase their technical acumen and say, well, I'm going to go get my ENP. And people always ask me, well, which one is more valuable? Well, they're equally valuable for completely different reasons. And it depends where you are in your career and where you want to go. And if that knowledge base is going to benefit you when you get to where you want to go, or is it going to help you get there? So, that again, CMCP is a natural progression if you want to become management someday.
Yeah. And I am looking towards that area. My boys I have two boys and they're in middle school, and we kind of have discussed that
How
when
can you have two boys in middle school? What are you, like 26?
no, I thank you. That's very sweet of you, but no, I'm in my 40s. Um, but
I gotta clean this camera off or something.
this would be 15 years of night shift in the basement. That
Oh, okay.
I was a vampire before because I never was exposed to sunlight.
Gotcha.
But when they become adults and fly the coop, we kind of want to settle close to where they are. And as much as I love dispatching, and as much as it's in my blood, I do not think I want to be a line supervisor somewhere else. Starting over shift work and weekends and evenings, and
Yep.
again,
Been there, done that, paid your dues,
right?
not interested.
Exactly.
What made you get interested in becoming a dispatcher and taking that public safety profession?
Well, that's a funny story too, because when I graduated with my art education degree in December of 2004, I had worked at dispatch for my campus security at Morehead State University. And it was similar, like I had exposure to the radio, but it wasn't nearly as in depth as 911 is. I was a glorified phone operator, is pretty much what it is, calling and answer. But so I moved back home to my parents' house, and I have three younger brothers. And I was looking for a job that had benefits. And that February 2005, my brother locked my keys in my car, and my dad had to call up to dispatch to ask for an officer to unlock it. And to this day, I do not know who he spoke to, but he's like, "Oh, by the way, my daughter's looking for a job," and they said, "Oh, by the way, we're hiring." And
Don't dads suck? They embarrass you so much for your life, right?
yes, I have that story. And then they hired
I
me.
do it to my daughter all the time.
Well, that's your job. It's our job as parents to embarrass our children.
Absolutely.
Well, then they hired me part-time because they were concerned that in the fall I would leave for a teaching job. And about 2 months into working here at Anoka County 911, our assistant director at the time walked by and she goes, "So you're going to leave us in the fall?" And I said, "Heck no, I like this too much." It had gotten in my blood, and I found my niche, and the rest is history.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I always tell people when you sit down behind the desk, this moment happens, and it might be right away, it might be a week, months, whatever, but this moment happens where you're like, "Holy shit, this is cool! I'm doing this forever, man." And it's just, I worked for 5 years. I was on the desk and I was on the road as well, but I wanted to pursue a career in technology. But it's funny because I came right back into technology for public safety. So, I feel like I left, but I never really left.
Yeah. Well, and I have always had a strong sense of community service and wanting to give back to my community. And that's kind of why I went into the teaching degree. One, I didn't know what else I wanted to get my degree in. I knew it was something. Two, I felt like that was a way to give back to my community. But being a 911 dispatcher is very fulfilling because not only are you helping the public, but you're helping the law enforcement and the fire department partners. And Um, the other thing is I am very much an introvert, and having that phone between me and the public really helped me build my confidence as a public speaker and just in general. And that was very gratifying too.
Yeah. You know what's cool? And that position is universal around the world. I was out in a PSAP in the Netherlands, right? And I'm sitting down next to a guy, watching what they're doing. Of course, I don't understand anything that they're saying. Who's Skadoof? But, and the number's 112 over in Europe. And he gets a cellular call that pops in, and I could hear that he's questioning the caller, and I kind of figured out he's trying to figure out where the guy actually is or confirm that. And on the map, I hear him, Pizza Hut? Like, do you think, yeah, do you see the Pizza Hut? Yes. Okay. That's where you are. Now I know where you are. And I'm like, oh my God, this is no different. I'm halfway around the world and these same exact problems happen in the same exact way. It just really cracked me up. And there's this global bonding that's there because of the idiosyncrasies of the job.
Yes, yes. Well, and what that was one of the things about APCO too. I went to APCO International in San Antonio, so that was 3 years ago now, I think. And how eye-opening and how amazing that experience was, just to be in an atmosphere with so many like-minded people in our profession and just the exciting things that are happening all over the country. It was very awe-inspiring.
Yeah, you go to a NINA conference or an APCO conference, and the culmination of people. I mean, you're talking 3, 4, 5,000 people that not only do what you do, but understand what you do. And, you take this person and this person, separate sides of the country, one male, one female, you put them together and they talk about the same exact problem.
Yes. Well, and just, it was like, these are my people. They're speaking my problems and my language, and it was so exciting. I came back and I sat down with my assistant director and director. I'm like, okay, here's the ideas I have. And it was like, I had a laundry list and they're like, okay, let's rein this in a little bit. But it was exciting. It was very exciting.
The last time I worked the desk was 1985. So 80 to 85 I worked. But I still, after talking with people 5-10 minutes, there's this kinship that just comes out because I understand there are pieces of the job that have not changed in 40 years. Technology is a little different. There's new things available. I didn't even have a computer. Everything was handwritten on cards back then. I had one terminal to do DMV lookups, and that was it. And, there's just problems, daily problems of the job that are the same. You still have the little old lady on this street that calls you every Friday night. And at 8:50 on the 4th of July, the phones light up with where the fireworks. And, this is just constant stuff. But it's those things that bond everyone together, which I think is really, really cool.
Yes. Yeah. Everybody's got that horror story of, like you said, 4th of July, or mine is Halloween. I had a really interesting Halloween 3 years into my career that will forever scar me. But
what happened?
Well, we had a house party up in the country, or the north part of our county is very rural, and there was probably 200 to 300 underage kids at this party, and we'd been getting calls all night of noise complaints, and we had sent deputies there, and then I got another call. This was like at 2 a.m, and I see the deputy sitting, his ABL, he's sitting there. And so I shoot him a message and I said, so what are we doing with this? Is there they have a permit for this, or what's going on? And he goes, it's a huge party. I'm just waiting for a few other officers to come to assist me to shut it down. Then, like, what happened? Somebody decides to bring a knife to the party, and we had a couple of kids get stabbed, and they all fled. And the entire block became a crime scene. We had to we had 65, I think, single police cars up there along with state patrol, and we had to have the fire department come up with big huge lights so that they could search for evidence, and state patrol was up there assisting. We had to, I remember very clearly a sergeant calling up and saying, I don't care what cab companies you get, I just need cabs up here, tell them the county will pay for it. And it was just triaging and setting all that up. It was an amazing experience, but oh my gosh, it was a lot.
Wow, I don't have anything even near that good. We had a large party at a remote residence one night, and I had about, I don't know, 6 or 8 officers there, and the sergeant got on the radio. "Hey, I just did a check-in," and he's like, "Hang on." And then a couple seconds later, he came back and he goes, "Hit the plectrons." And we never hit the plectrons for police incidents, right? I mean, yeah, we tested them 7:15 every night, but I'm like, oh my God, I get to hit that button. And it's like, and I'm listening to tones going, and I'm thinking, oh my God, what am I going to say? Yeah. Everybody, it's like 10:30 at night. When these things go off, everybody's going to go, whoa, what's happening?
What is happening? Yeah.
So, and it was, that was just something I'll always remember. Of course, that was ancient text, and any transcripts would be on stone chisels, so I'd never have anything, I always say if YouTube and the internet existed, though, I probably would still be in jail, but,
Yeah. The things that used to happen back in the day, yeah, just crazy when you think of what social media and tech has done these days.
So you've been on the job almost 20 years. You can imagine what happened 20 years prior to that. That's part of the bonding, though, right? It's all harmless fun, but the public doesn't always understand these pressure relief valves. It's like a surgeon laughing or making fun in surgery. That's not appropriate in normal life, but it's a coping mechanism.
Yes. And that is one of the things that I start to kind of introduce a little bit in my classrooms, just saying, okay, now just be aware that this can happen. And it's not that we're being insensitive. It's we have to have a coping mechanism. And I'll say, think of your normal office politics and think of the drama and the things that can happen. And then in a 911 center, put those conditions in a pressure cooker and hit high. And that's what happens.
Yeah. Multiply that by 1,000, right?
Yeah. We're stuck in a very small area on top of each other for 12 hours a day. And then everything happens. And yeah, it can be a lot.
Yeah, interesting job though. It's I really feel fortunate I get to stay with the industry and with the community, and I love doing this with the ENPs because I get to talk to people that are well vested in their careers, and then the new people that are starting. They're not hanging out for 19 years waiting before they get their credentials. They're like, I'm brand new. I'm gonna go get it, right away.
Well, actually, listening to your podcast, the 10 that I listened to before, I was almost a little jealous of those ones that did get it done so fast. But then I have to remind myself that life happens how it's going to happen. And when you go through life, you just have to keep your eyes open for those opportunities and take those opportunities when they present themselves.
Exactly. You know what I mean? Everybody's career is different. And the biggest thing is to recognize, this will benefit me. I need this. This is well worth the investment of my time. I've got funding. Now, great that your agency paid for that. A lot of people struggle to get the funding because agencies won't pay for it because they may not see the value.
Yes, I feel very grateful and blessed that my agency did pay for that. We have 2 others in our department that have it. One came to us from another agency with it already, and she just recertified this past fall or a couple months ago. And then another supervisor got it last October.
Great. Now, see, as yourself and those people get up into management positions, this is where they're going to say, you know what, this is a valuable credential for me. I need to hire a new person. Okay, you need to have this or get it and maintain it within 6 months, which is criteria for keeping the job. Starting to see that more and more and more. ENP preferred must obtain within 6 months if you don't have it.
Yeah. Minnesota is starting to go to, well, we're trying to go to a state certification. We don't have one right now. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. And then if we can get that process ironed out, then yes, absolutely. I could see where having that ENP would be beneficial.
It wouldn't it be great to get the state to fund a program for that? And just say, you know what, we're going to require that our supervisory folks get their ENP, and we're going to pay for the training. It's not that much. Or the testing, because the training's free.
Yes, it is. Yes. And I am very impressed with that too.
Unless Tracy's collecting money on the side that I don't know about.
No, she's not. I am very impressed.
And if she is, I want a little bit of that because I know she rails me every class.
Get some kickbacks. Yeah.
But
I get her back though as well, so that's okay.
I am very impressed with Colorado and their program that they have, that they put those podcasts on there. As of, it was 2014, I think those videos were created. And I
did the MLTS one.
I know. I listened to that one.
I picture that in black and white. It's now the 911 system.
Right. Well, it just impresses me that they have it on their website for the whole state to be able a part of, and not just that, but then they opened it up to outside states as well. And I think that's very progressive of them. In 2014, and I didn't even know that there was such a thing as NEET and APCO back then. So it's very, very neat that they did that.
Actually, it's interesting because I was working for Avaya at the time. So I was out there at I think it was some county meeting or something. But there were about 50 people. I think it was a NASNA meeting, National Association of State 911 Administrators. So I was speaking on Carey's Law at the time, and then Daryl Branson, who's now the state 911 director for Colorado, he ran that Colorado chapter, or the Denver chapter, or whatever, and was responsible for that library of materials. He's like, hey, while you're out here, would you do a video for the MLTS stuff? I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever, a couple hours. So I did that for him, and I never realized that, 10 years later, that would still be there, right? But at that NASNA meeting, there were a couple of people there that really took the Carey's Law thing to heart and made it, or help make it, a national campaign at the federal level, saying, no, this is important, and brought me into some federal NASNA meetings to say, tell the story, which I did. And I was like, wow, that was an opportunity and a half.
That's amazing.
That really bolstered the whole, and we were just starting with the legislation, but that put it into gear and let the clutch out and got it moving, because I got to speak to all of these high-level people and all these state directors, and I had a few of them going, you need to listen to this. This is important. And then that's, those are the opportunities that being an ENP just got me into. Nothing planned, but it just opened the doors, if you will.
Yeah, well, and that's why when you reached out to me to do this podcast, I was very honored, but also I saw it as an opportunity to pay it forward, because you never know when an opportunity like this might inspire someone down the road to get their ENP, and who knows, they could be the person that spearheads some other great legislation like Carey's Law.
Exactly. You just don't know. And it's so cool that and it's cool that you have that attitude, but I got to tell you, this is what I get out of all the ENPs coming in play, which is great. It's just, this is literally the cream of the crop rising to the top. And it's really cool to see that. And it's cool to be part of facilitating that.
I have to say that your podcast really helped give me confidence because I didn't know a lot of people that had done it or that had the credentials. And to hear, like you said, some of those young people coming in that have only had 5 years under their belts at 911 and saying, "Oh yeah, I did it," and we're like, "Okay," that kind of put it in perspective to me that yes, I can do this too. I can study. I know how to study. I'm an okay test taker. This is something that I want to do. This is something I want to be a part of, and I will try it. So.
Yeah, no, that's cool. So I work for 911 Inform, and my marketing director there, I was talking to her and I'm like, I want to come up with a new podcast series. And she's like, well, why don't you help? She goes, everybody. Why don't you do something for new ENPs? And I'm like, oh, wow, that's a good idea. I want to just have this casual conversation. So we were talking about different names, and I came up with a bunch of stupid names. And she's like, why don't you just call it Off the Cuff? Call it what it is.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're freaking brilliant. She's like, that's why I got a marketing degree.
You're right.
She goes, tell you what, you don't market and I won't engineer 911. Deal. You got it. No problem, Sam.
Yeah.
So now this was her idea. And I brought it to Nina, and I'm like, what if we do this as a series? And we did a few different ones. I started with Tracy. And, that was the inaugural one. And went through and did my friends first. And then I started, being that I was on the Nina Institute board, I got the list of new ENPs as they got approved. So I'm like, there's my hit list.
There's your in list, yeah.
And, and here you are. You are on the list.
I'm on the list. It was, yeah. So when I got what does it say? The possible pass, preliminary.
Yeah. Not provincial. What?
Preliminary.
Preliminary, yeah.
Preliminary pass. I at first was like looking at it like, okay, does that mean it passed or not? And then I was talking to my coworker who had recently got it, and she goes, no, that means you passed because you only get a preliminary fail if there's a question that they have to go over again or something. And I was like, okay. And then when I got the official email, and I was on vacation when my certificate came into work, then it really hit home. And I was like, oh, well, yeah, I got it. And
Right. No, and we just talked about that actually in the last meeting. There's only been a couple of preliminary fails that, because we had a question that was being questioned, and these are people that had like 104s, so they got the 105, or this one question brought them up into a full pass. That's only happened a couple of times. We've never had a question change to the negative side that took a pass to a fail. Thank God. How do you do that, right? But there's only a small handful that were on the line, and they happened to catch one question that brought them from a fail to a pass. That's good. So what one piece of advice do you have for someone who's thinking about this?
If this is something that interests you, do it. It's well worth it. Just the feeling of accomplishment that I have, and 911 as a profession, like we've talked about, there's so many pieces to it. There's so much new technology, and being able to say, okay, I know when I'm doing my job, that I know my stuff, but here is something that says that I know what I'm doing my stuff, or I know my stuff, and this is my validation for that. Not that I need it, but it just helps your confidence. And when studying, go back to what you learned in high school and those how you would ace a test or how you'd study for a test. Nobody studies the same way. Find what works for you and apply it to this, and it'll be very beneficial and rewarding.
And what do you do with those 3 letters after your name once you get them?
You put them after your name on an email.
Or you go on a podcast and get yelled at.
That I didn't do it this time. Yes, exactly.
That's okay. I get to do that to like probably 90% of the people.
Because it hasn't sunk in yet.
It hasn't sunk in yet. Right, exactly. Some of the people, they're like, yeah, baby. ENP Supreme. So, yeah. Well, listen, thanks very much. Thanks for what you do. Long career. Great example for your kids and your husband as well, saying.
Absolutely.
So, well, good for you, and congratulations once again, and welcome to the world of ENP.
Thank you. It feels wonderful.
Great. All right, Kel, have a great day.
You too.
Well, that wraps up this episode of Off the Cuff, Confessions of an ENP. I'm Mark Fletcher, ENP. Off the Cuff is sponsored by 911 Inform, delivering next-generation 911 solutions to the enterprise today and making every second count. Visit them on the web at 911inform.com. Remember, you can follow me on Twitter at Fletch911. Check out all my blogs and podcasts at Fletch.tv. And be sure to like and subscribe below. That way you'll be immediately notified whenever a new podcast is published. Thanks so much for listening. If you're in public safety, thanks for what you do. Take care and have a great day.